Little pigs, let me in. I see that you like to play games. Come on in. Hey, guy, do you like cartoons too?
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Player Display, and oh boy, we got another monster to look at, baby! So if you've been paying attention to the pre-orders and solicitations like I have every blue moon, no pun intended, my apologies, then you might have noticed that there have been some, independent third-party companies that have been releasing characters that don't really belong to any particular IP. So you've been seeing a lot of miscellaneous aliens, soldiers, skeletons, stuff of that nature that we can pretty much throw into any display that we like, and this happens to be one of them. So this is... God damn it, who produced this? The COO Toys? COO Toys? I don't know who made this. There's so many logos everywhere. This is the Werewolf Snow-Capped Mountain variant from COO Toys, I guess. I don't know what this thing's called. BBTS, Big Bad Toy Store, they were having a weekend sale some time ago, and I saw this guy discounted, and he looked really friggin' awesome. I mean, I got him for several reasons. First of all, he's a werewolf. And second, we have seen quite the influx of really interesting werewolf offerings from different lines. So I really wanted to get this figure, which is way out of left field, and kind of compare it with other wolf figures we've seen in the past, and see how he levels up in quality. Mainly because he ain't cheap. If he weren't on sale, would have passed completely. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that this is the deluxe version, which means the only difference between this one and the standard version is that he comes with a very special display base that we will be having a look at. There are technically 4 versions of this figure. There's the snow-capped version and a jungle variant, which is more in brown, obviously the snow one. Then each one of those has a deluxe variant. But anyways, let's go ahead and start with the box, because this is most likely not going to be a box we'll ever see again on this channel, because it's so out there. And again, I don't know if I'd be chasing this line. We'll see. I don't know how much I'm going to love this. I think I am. I'm pretty sure I am. Let's go ahead and find out. Anyways, as you can already pretty much see on the box, let's zoom in a little bit. We have Monster File PM004. Is that when he wakes up in the morning or turns back into a human? I have no idea. But down there, we got the title of the figure, some logos, then we got COOModel, COOModel Toys. Then down here, we have 1/12 scale handmade figure. I don't know what the word handmade means. I guess there's a difference between a workshop and a sweatshop from which these figures come from. Turning this box around, by the way, I have not looked at any other reviews or anything on this figure. I went in this totally dry, so this is going to be as much a surprise to me as it will be to you. On this side, we get Starry Night. Okay, I like that painting. That's nice. We get more of that blue, whatever the hell's going on. And then on the back, here we are. We got that deluxe stand I was talking about. Here's a clearer zoom in if you want to go ahead and read these details a little bit more specifically, because I have a feeling this guy's going to be a little bit special. And also got your warning label. You don't want to choke to death, I'm pretty sure. He's supposed to choke on you. You're not supposed to choke on him. On the top, we got the title of the figure again, along with its many little subtitles, scaling, and all of that. And off to the bottom, exact same thing, just more with that pretty icy blue, I suppose. So that's pretty much it for the box, so let's go ahead and bring out good old Betsy. And we'll see what we have to look at here. This doesn't seem like anything complex at all. It looks like it encourages you to open it from the top, so I will go ahead and do that with my pal here. There we are. I don't even know if we'll need to cut anything else up here, but we'll find out. Let's go ahead and pull this dude out. And, whoa, okay. It feels very collector-friendly. I'm not seeing any crazy ties, anything like that. It looks like you pop open this plastic, as we will do right now. Nice, nice. And then everything looks very loosey-goosey. So let's go one part at a time. The first thing we have is 3 different looking logs. I don't know, it looks like they plug into the base. You can see that there's some very distinct sculpt work towards the bottom of each one. So they probably expect you to assemble the stand a little bit. Not a problem. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Then we also have what looks like the crotch portion of a more bland figure stand. I'm not sure if this would go right on there. From the solicitation images, it kind of suggested that there were two, a really basic black one and then the more deluxe variant that we have here. So I guess we plug this into this stand that we have over here. Whoa, it's flocked on the bottom. That's really nice. That feels nice. I like that. We also have a little baggie with a whole bunch of screws and bolts, which I was not expecting. So I guess I'll have to run out of here and get a screwdriver and come back. Why am I still holding this? I don't know. You tell me. We also have this little wrapped up paper. Let's see, is it a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's factory? No, it's just instructions on how to build the base. Wait a minute, is that a... Oh, I was right! So you do have two different types of bases. I think the standard versions of these wolves comes with this one, but when you get deluxe, you get both. So obviously I'll be using this one for the wolf, and I'll have this one for any other figure that I feel like needs some support. So nice to have two, I'm not complaining. But yeah, when you go ahead and look at the instructions, pretty standard stuff if you've ever had any type of articulated figure stand. Just 4 screws, little peg, 4 joints, and then crab claw clamp. Looking pretty good. And then, of course, we got our big old badass Wolfman looking really cool. Alright, let's get the plastic out of the way. So here is our... Sorry, I gotta read the friggin' box to remember what this thing's called. The Snow-Capped Mountain Bloody White Werewolf Deluxe version. There you go, that's his government name. I played around with him just for a few moments to test out the joints to be sure everything was in one piece. And then here we are with all the parts that he came with. And honestly, he's pretty cool. I like him. Now you're noticing that I'm not saying that I love him. Interesting. Why am I saying that? I do love him. He is very good, but I feel like they could have gone above and beyond. This one isn't quite there. But before we get into that, let's just have a look at the figure, right? That's why you guys are probably here. Getting him off the basic figure stand, here is the head sculpt. And as you could probably already guess, yes, he has an articulated jaw. I love that. Not enough figures have it. And it's very well hidden under the fur that we have on the sides. And you can make out that he is, of course, a gray wolf with a little bit of snow painted in, somewhat, not too heavily, which I like a lot. So you can still appreciate the good sculpted details. And one thing I will mention before we go any further down, we'll pan out for a second here, and you will see that everything feels very rugged and rough and non-factory. And you know what? This is what really gives it that handmade vibe. You can tell that this was put together with human fingers, which I really like a lot. We have some eyes that are really well sculpted. They're not printed on. You can actually notice if I turn them in the light, there is a little bit of an indented pupil inside the whites of the eye, looking very good. And then you can see there on the other side. Off to the snout, we have very well applied black on the lips and the nose with a little bit of gloss, some gloss on the gums and teeth as well with a little bit of that blood. You know how I feel about blood. You also got some really good looking ears. I like how they're not perfectly symmetrical. One's a little bit more droopy than the other, so this makes him feel a lot more organic, not fabricated. This is just a dude who turned into a beast, and you really feel that when you're looking at this figure. Going off to the rest of the body, obviously this guy is clothed, so we're going to look at him as he is right now, and I'm going to bite the bullet, the silver one perhaps, and take off the clothes and see how far the paint and articulation goes with everything off and see what look I prefer better. We have a very good looking ripped up shirt of some sort. I guess the clothes, this would make me imagine he's from 1700s, 1800s. I don't know. It looks like it could be colonial. It definitely doesn't look like a modern werewolf by any means. I mean, perhaps the wolf, but the attire suggests that he's like a period werewolf. He came from back in time almost, which I really like a lot. Again, that's a great thing about these generic non-IP figures. You could drop them on any shelf and you'll feel like they'll fit, right? We do have some torso work, more sculpting and more painting under the shirt, looking really nice. And then you can see if we peel the shirt back, you get some of that joint. The gray is a little bit darker here than the snow white that we get on the torso, the pec area. But again, the shirt kind of hides that. Once more, we will remove this clothing and see what's going on underneath. Down to the arms, continuation of that very excellent sculpt work. You get a little bit of that darker black. This is pretty much the last I'll say about paint. I love that. That's one of the strongest parts about this entire figure. It varies constantly. It never stays on one color palette for too long. It always transitions. Like as you can see, it's darker here. Then it goes back to the white. Then we got some darker gray. Then black as we make our way to the claws, of course, as you need for any werewolf figure, right? And then you got a little bit of blood stain looking very good. Down to the pants, again, if it continues with that very tattered look, it's kind of this dark navy blue, I suppose, all wrapped up with this little rope, which makes me a little bit nervous when I'm going to be taking off the clothes. Again, I'll be doing that, so you don't have to if you have any desire to go after this figure. It also has these intentional rips. As great as they look, do be careful. Obviously, it's not engineered to hold that shape, so you do want to be careful when you're articulating him so it doesn't rip further than you'd like. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing and not so ripped up that it no longer functions on the figure. And then down to the legs, pretty much what you expect from the rest. Everything feels very consistent, not out of place. More of that varied paintwork, the really beautifully sculpted fur going down to the fur, and then you almost have that third leg just barely showing up at the foot sculpt. Again, with those little claws, they're a little gray here in compared to the claws on the hand. I don't think that bothers me too much at all. I guess it could vary. Werewolves aren't real. I guess it can have different color variations, right? And here we are. I just spent like a good maybe 5 minutes taking all the clothes off, and it was a very antsy experience. It was very difficult getting the pants off. I mean, first you had to untie that rope, then you kind of had to bring it down like, one leg hole at a time, just inch it down until eventually it went past the feet. So that wasn't too difficult. The shirt was a little bit more tricky though. This hand was a little bit too big for the sleeve, and I actually tore it a tad. Not a huge deal. I mean, it's supposed to look tattered anyways. You wouldn't notice anyhow. But it's pretty apparent that they put on the soft goods before they popped on the hands, and I don't know if these are removable, so I don't want to test that. But that being said, all the garments are off, and you know what? Maybe I prefer it this way more. I don't know, it's really your preference. I mean, let me know in the comments, do you prefer this werewolf clothed or unclothed? I mean, I suppose a good argument for why you'd want this wolf to wear clothing is to hide some of the joints. I mean, especially in the pelvis area here, as you can see. But actually, I like him without, just because he's no longer a period werewolf. Now he doesn't feel like he's confined to a specific century. Now he doesn't feel like a colonial wolf. He feels like he could be running around right now or on a spaceship. That's a, you know how horror movies go. That's not too out there anymore. He's got a really good-looking six-pack. I like how it's not too defined. It's a little bit rugged. Again, looks very wild, kind of greased up. That's definitely brought on behalf of the paint. You can almost notice some airbrushing. There's like some dirt, some soot that's kind of covering him up. He hasn't taken a bath in a while. It's very apparent. And then the last thing that I think I already pointed out is that you have these very obvious-looking pelvis joints, which I don't love. That's probably my least favorite thing about this figure, but really it does not take away from this guy too much at all from me. He looks really fantastic. Turning around to the back, you get more details that were, of course, hidden by the shirt, but you just appreciate them all the more once you have the shirt off. Then you have this really amazing-looking gluteus maximus on this wolf. This guy was definitely doing some workouts before he turned, right? Look at him. He looks great. This guy is cut. I suppose before you move on to accessories, which are few, but still very important because this is the deluxe variant, let's go ahead and look at articulation. So up here at the snout, of course, we already talked about the jaw, opening it all the way. It goes that far, so you can get a good bite out of there, I think. Then close all the way back together, looking really cool. As for the head, no, it's just a single ball, so you can do that much up, not straight out, so he couldn't do a whole ton of crawling. Well, I guess you could probably work with it a little bit. You can not get him a whole ton down because you get that almost like this mane in the way that kind of gets him stuck. But you do get some tilt, which is very good, and you can do all the rotation you like. Actually, I like that a lot. It makes him feel a lot more feral, very much like the American Werewolf figure that we got, which we will be looking at in a few moments. As for the shoulders, nothing too fancy. It's a standard ball joint. Well, rather a pin joint, right? And it goes full 360 swivel. Yes, I just want to be careful of the sculpt work, but it is in there. Hinges, actually past 90, and he does a full Batman, looking really good. There's no bicep swivel, but you do have a swivel in the single jointed elbow, as you can see right there. The elbow crunches to just a hair past 90. I think it's hard to say because the sculpt in the forearm looks a little bit curved inward, so it's tough to gauge. But as for the wrists, they're kind of like the McFarlane figures, where you got the joint that could be interchanged between in and out, and then you can rotate it so it can go up and down. So you can easily get all the clawing action that you want, pouncing forward. Like already he looks a lot more dynamic, right? Down to the torso, it's just a ball joint. It feels like Marvel Legends here, actually. This thing's kind of a marriage of all the different brands that we've been seeing. But yeah, he's got some swivel. He can do a pretty good amount down and an okay amount back. Not as much as I'd hope for this premium looking figure, but still not too bad. I think it's really more about the deco than anything else, which is okay. I mean, that's a trade-off that some people would prefer. As for the thighs, they don't look great, but I feel like these would have a lot of movement in them, and you know what? Yeah, they definitely do. I think this is pretty much as straight as it goes. It does go up past 90. As for kicking back, V's out at the butt, not too bad at all. Kicking off to the side, oh man, all right, well, that's okay, that happens. Just gotta pop it right back on. Ooh, like that click. But yeah, before it pops off, he goes to shy of 90, but still not too bad. Knees are double jointed. I already tested them out to be sure there was no issues, and it comes back until the calf meets the thigh in the back there. Not so bad. As for the ankles, they go that far back, that far forward, and you also have some rocker. Really excellent stuff. Not the most superior articulation I've seen in a figure, but still not too bad. I like this guy quite a bit. Unfortunately, there's no true accessories other than the pants and the shirt that we just removed before, but we do have two options of figure stands that we'll go ahead and have a look at. So the first one is the more plain one that you get with the standard version, but again, still, it's nice to always have an extra. You never know when you're going to have another figure that will need this. I feel like it would be pretty good for NECA figures, perhaps a Predator or something like that. But yeah, it's pretty basic, I guess, doll stand where you just get this little pin, plug it into the base, and then you also have this articulated, well, not really articulated, but movie uppy downy crotch bit. That's the words I've got for this thing. It's made of a good material as well. Then, of course, we have the more deluxe stand, and this is what gives this entire figure its deluxe title. Everything else comes with the standard version. This is the only part that is unique. So I use those instructions to build this acrylic articulated figure stand, and that was no issue at all. We should be able to peg this right into the space here. I haven't actually tried this yet, but it's a little bit tight. Yeah, I might go out of my way to sort of sand this down so it'll plug in better, but let's say we get this one from the basic one, and no, that's way too big. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I think it's because there's so much paintwork going into the base that it makes the hole too small for the stand to actually fit. So I'm going to have to custom work with that. Maybe even just get like an X-Acto knife, carve out a little bit in the center there. But anyways, all that being said, let's see how these log bits fit in. So let's have a little bit of a look at them before we actually plug it in. It actually looks like real wood. I mean, that is definitely a point that I'll have to give to this figure. It looks like something that you would pick up in the woods and then bring back home, which I tend to do a lot for some reason. Maybe I'm part werewolf myself. No, I'm not. I'm not that cool. You can actually see from the bottom, this one is keyed. It's got that little corner in there, so that should fit right into there. It is a tight fit, which is a good thing. So there we go there. It looks like a tree that was kind of knocked down. Then we have two more. We got a medium and a small. We got this one over here, and it seems like that ports into this side here, although it looks like, you see there's a little bit of excess plastic, so I'm going to go ahead. I got some wire cutters right here. I'm actually going to trim that off. Easy. You can even just use a nail clipper if you don't have anything too advanced. Come on, you. It's not as easy as the other one for whatever reason. Alright, you know what, I went ahead and just paused and then plugged them in, but as you can see, everything, at least it's stable, nothing's falling out, so everything's got a good amount of friction holding everything in. I think the issue as to why they're not perfectly form-fitting or flush is because that sucks. Perhaps there is excess paint, so that prevents it from going in all the way as it should. No, it's not a rotation problem. Again, the keys tell you exactly where it's supposed to align. You can see there, it's kind of that one little square that slots into the outer part of that socket. And even when I match it up, it doesn't seem like everything lines up just right. So, yeah, just groove it around until you feel like you got some friction in there. I might even just glue it and then set it down and try not to touch them, I suppose. Again, we can't use this because I need to adjust either the socket or the peg before it can actually go in, which is kind of a bummer. You know what? All right, fine. Yeah, so this figure definitely has some good posing options. It's just the stand needs a little bit of help, but for the price point I got it at, we'll talk about that later. I'm developing some opinions on this. Now, even though this guy's marketed it as a 1/12 scale figure, I really wanted to see how he compares with the 7-inch scale figures, of course, primarily coming from NECA. So to start, we have one of the demons from American Werewolf in London, and this is the most Wolfman-looking portrait that we got with that figure. I actually have 4 of them, so that way I could use all of them. So if you put him away, we have the more, I guess, zombified looking one from that really batshit crazy scene, which I absolutely love. And then on the right, we have the Wolfman that started it all from Universal Monsters, Lon Chaney Jr. And one thing that I wanted to mention that's pretty cool is you can see this figure is quite unique from NECA in that he comes with his own special figure stand because, as in the movie, his wolf feet do a tippy toe sort of thing that you also see on this figure here. If I bring him in, then you'll see it also does go up a little bit. So I don't know if that's a direct homage to the Universal Monsters movie, but still, I don't know, it's kind of a nice little nuance. I like that a lot. Gives a little bit of a poetry. You sort of see an evolution from wolf to wolf, you know? Now just threw in a whole variety of figures to put alongside him that are horror adjacent or perhaps from other lines that could just barely make it into that IP. And yeah, you could definitely tell he is more allotted for the 1/12 scale. I guess he works with 7-inch scale too. He's not too bad. Like here we have a predator who are naturally supposed to be taller than the average human being. And I guess if you have Lon Chaney Jr. here, who didn't get any taller necessarily when he turned into his Wolfman form, he is still taller than our Snow Wolf over here, so he's definitely meant to be with the smaller guys. But anyways, going on to these other brand and size comparisons. On the left, we have Zalbar from Star Wars The Black Series. This is 6-inch scale. He uses the exact same base body as Chewbacca and all the other Wookiees we've seen so far, except for Black Chrysanthemum, who I'm hoping to get very soon. And then next to him, we have Mego's version of Nosferatu, obviously way too tall. These guys are stylized, so they are supposed to be a little bit bigger, and the soft goods are supposed to look a little bit more hokey and retro, which is fine. And then the last one I wanted to throw in over here is Peter B. Parker from Into the Spider-Verse, because I was thinking that this might be a good base figure if you wanted to turn him into Werewolf, also from Marvel. And I could definitely see that if you give him a little bit of armor, some weaponry. I could see you doing something like that with him. But then the last figure that absolutely must be brought into this size comparison, if you get everyone else out of the way, is naturally, in my opinion, the best werewolf figure we've gotten thus far, being the big old beefy American Werewolf in London, Kessler Wolf. And I was wondering if perhaps this one could outdo the American Werewolf. What was I thinking? Of course not. Yeah, I mean, putting these guys side by side, you can look at the portraits. Yeah, this guy wins. And unfortunately, we gotta yet again put Muck Muck beside another monster, hopefully to get along a little better this time.
Fresh meat.
Wait, I like Duran.
Duran.
I'm on the hunt, I'm after you.
So, as for my final thoughts on this figure, a little bit of a mix. I think there's really one word that can describe this figure in its entirety: art piece. This is not an action figure, not something you want to be playing around with. This is definitely one of those figures that I drop into the set it and forget it bucket of type of figure. This is a figure where you get him the way you want, dressed, undressed, pose him up, figure out the stand, drop him there, and you leave him there for 6 months, then change him up again. Kind of like that Batman we had to look at from Dynamic Action Heroes before, and that figure was kind of a similar case here, where you have a very beautiful figure, the articulation leaves a few things to be desired, there's also some questionable accessory choices. But in the case of this Snowwolf that we have, the accessories are a little bit lacking, especially for the price point. Speaking of price point, let's go ahead and talk about that. Do I recommend that you get this figure? Again, this is the deluxe version that came with the stand, which definitely had a hiked up price point. On sale for any of the 4 variants of this figure that you could get, whether it be standard or deluxe, then I say, sure, if you're having a good day, go for them, why not? But for stock price, nah. I think there needs to be a lot more for this guy. Especially when you're looking at brands like Mafex, SH Figure Arts, where you have figures for $80 that come with a whole smorgasbord of accessories to supplement them. Yeah, this guy, he does not cut it for the stock price that he's selling at. Like, I understand he is bigger, he's hand done, which is definitely the strongest point of this figure. You could definitely feel everything has kind of that human touch in there when it came to putting them together. He just requires a little bit more to be considered deluxe or premium. Again, when you use those words, people are going to interrogate these figures a lot more closely. And I will say, every piece that has gone into this figure, as few as there are to look at, they're done beautifully well. As for the wolf here, I love the sculpt work. Everything looks fantastic. He doesn't have clothes on at the moment, but the paint, the sculpt, everything looks absolutely spectacular. As for the base, though, that's kind of the letdown. It's very beautifully painted and all that, don't get me wrong. I love the logs and all that. The blood could be a little darker here on the cadavers. I forgot to mention that. It looks really good. Overall, it just feels like it's a little bit too bright. The sculpt work's there. I love the bones. I love the wood. I kind of like the icy border that we have going around it, which is very nice. But the functionality does throw me off. Again, I can't fit in this stand at all. I feel like I'd have to apply a lot of force. And then as for that third log, where the hell did it go? I can't seem to fit it in to the point where it just locks, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go out of my way and maybe do a little bit of hot glue so it stays in there better. But again, I feel like this would be less something you display alongside your NECA or horror collection, and more something that you get just as a one-off display piece that you put at a desk, put in a cubicle, or something like that. I don't think I'd put this alongside figures that you're more willing to throw around, like your Marvel Legends, your Star Wars Black Series, whatever the hell. You can definitely admire the craftsmanship, but in terms of functionality, he needs a little bit of help. I don't know, I just feel like we've seen other figures that are this same size that come with more stuff, that are better articulated, and are better priced. I understand this is an indie line. Naturally, if they're producing less stuff and putting more craftsmanship into them, sure, they're going to hike up the price. I get that, but if you're going to do that, you got to be sure that all the few things you're including are absolutely spectacular. Visually, yeah, I get it. But when it comes to putting everything together as one piece, and you can't do that, it's kind of a downer. For me, the way I see it, I bought this figure for stock price plus the bonus figure stand. That's what allows me to forgive this a little bit more. But if this guy wasn't on sale, then I'd riot a little bit more, to be honest with you. But with all those gripes out of the way, I do like him. I think he's very cool. It's just there are a few glaring issues that I feel like until they're fixed, they're going to leave a sour taste in my mouth. But it's going to get done. Again, I'm a customizer. I don't feel an issue doing that to get him to the quality that I prefer. But again, if you're one of those collectors who like to pop him out of the box, have everything just right, I'd say you pass. This guy is going to leave you with a few issues. Overall, cool wolf. I like werewolves. I think he's pretty cool alongside my horror collection. I think I'm definitely going to put him alongside more the classic, like, Universal monsters. I think he'd fit in pretty well there. Perhaps maybe with the slashers. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. It's just the QC things that they could have thought out a little bit more, especially when justifying the stock price point. If he weren't for sale, I wouldn't have gotten them. I'll leave it at that. But anyhow, if you enjoyed this review and you enjoyed this figure, then please, as per usual, be sure to
like,
comment,
and subscribe.
Or like a whole bunch of monsters are gonna invade your home, Scoop! Zoinks! Blah! Thanks a lot for watching, rock on, and I will see you all later. Werewolves were probably one of the first things that I loved as a child. Like back in the day, I always loved just drawing the exact same things over and over again in elementary school, and werewolves were one of them. It's probably the very first monster I really fell head over heels for. You could even see him in like the Star Wars Cantina. You know, there was that unfortunately deleted Wolfman patron in the non-special editions that was holding the cup and sitting in the back drinking. I'd drop this guy in a Star Wars scene any day. I'd have no complaints there.